If it didn't change anything, then why was the language altered, I guess, is my point. What am I missing here?
Back in 2002, we had mistakenly put gender identity under the sexual orientation subheading, and it really has nothing to do with sexual orientation. So it's really just a language cleanup. And in fact, almost nothing you said in the intro was right. I don't mean to be argumentative.
No, go right ahead. Go right ahead.
We passed our non-discrimination ordinance in 2002. What we did yesterday was done with a year's worth of public input, done on the normal council schedule. There was nobody showed up to oppose it. I mean, this is popular in Dallas. In our charter amendment election last November, the same language applied to city employees passed by 77%. It was a November referendum.
And Jonathan, welcome to the program. I appreciate you being here. Because I have read, I was looking at even the way some local news here, local at least with respects to Dallas, the way I had seen it reported is that there wasn't a lot of fanfare about it. And maybe one of the reasons that the public didn't show up is because they weren't quite sure exactly what was happening. Give us your thoughts on this, because you were one of the individuals that said this was fast-tracked, and you did oppose the modification to this ordinance.
Well, sure, Dana, look, this bathroom bill is something that the Dallas people clearly are rejecting. I'm sure the city council member is being inundated with phone calls at City Hall. Social media has exploded on this issue, coming off a clear message in Houston, where the Houston people sent a clear message when they were actually allowed to vote at the ballot box. 61-39, they rejected this. Why? Because this type of Dallas bathroom ordinance, just like the one in Houston, threatens the safety of women and children. And it's something that when the public actually is able to see what it is and they're informed about it, they reject it. And that's a diverse group of people that reject it. And so this, look, it's been reported that there was a closed session meeting on Monday night where some new language came about and they tried to fast track it on Tuesday morning.
That's just flat
and a lot
false.
of the LGBT advocates were already reporting on social media before there was even a vote that it was going to be approved at noon. So it's clear that the fix has kind of been in on this. But, now that the people are allowed to see what it is, they're clearly rejecting it. And so, that is
also
these kind
false.
of efforts to try to keep the people out of the process are the type of Washington style and Obama tactics that didn't work in Houston, and they're not going to work in Dallas.
Well, let me, and Philip, I know one of the things that you had taken exception to.
That's like 100% made up. That was crazy.
One of the things that you had taken exception to was just the title of the bathroom bill. And when I was looking over just like the language of it, it does touch upon public accommodations. Because if this includes individuals who they perceive their gender, and of course we know that gender is who you go to bed as, orientation is who it's with, but if they perceive their gender to be, a man or a woman, then they can use because restrooms are public accommodation. Now, am I getting that any language in that ordinance incorrect?
We've had non-discrimination for transgender people since 2002, and we've never had one bathroom complaint. I think the people who are focused on bathrooms, I think that says more about them personally than about our ordinance.
There was, I think, something around, none of them had been acted on, but there were 61 complaints that came in from just everything that I had read that had been at least reported anyway, but none of them had been acted on. There was no, nothing was actionable. There was no, legal follow-up.
There were no complaints about trans people using the restroom.
But what do you say
Transgender people complained about being discriminated against, but I don't think any of those had to do with bathrooms.
So if it's...
Your bathroom experience will not change.
Right. Well, let me ask this, because if a transgender individual, say there's a man who identifies as a woman, and their biggest concern about using the men's restroom is that it makes them feel uncomfortable. They don't like the way it makes them feel if they are going into the men's restroom. They want to use the women's restroom. And what do you say, though, to the women who say, well, you know what, that's kind of our same feeling on this. We still feel uncomfortable if there's a gentleman in our restroom, regardless of how they identify. And I think that the question and criticism then becomes, well, then why does one individual get to trump the rights of the women who say, well, we don't know if we necessarily agree with this?
Well, if I ever meet one of those women, I'll let you know. But trans people, if they break the law, have to go to women's prison. If a trans woman has to go to a women's prison, this is how we treat trans people in the United States. You know what trans people are? Voters. They're citizens of the United States, and equal protection under law applies to them the same way it does to you and me.